Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's webinar, Business Disruptions with the Internet of Things, generally referred to as IoT. My name is Natasha Thompson, and I will be your host today. I do have the really great pleasure to be interviewing IoT expert Sudha Jamthe today. Myself, I am the CEO of Marketing Accelerator, a social media marketing consultancy. I'm also the author of a book on B2B social media marketing and an instructor at University of Santa Cruz, Silicon Valley. This event will last for 60 minutes, including 15 minutes for Q&A. Feel free to ask your questions in the tool, and we'll take them during the presentation if we can fit it in. Otherwise, the last 15 minutes. And also feel free to use the hashtag IoTAI, easier to remember when you think of hashtag Internet of Things Artificial Intelligence. You'll also see that on the slides during the event to communicate with me. Okay, today we will talk about IoT, a buzzword that seems to be becoming an integral part of everyday life. Or is it? This event will focus on using IoT for disruptive innovation and to create real value. We will also talk about how to use IoT to improve the customer journey. What impact will IoT have on our jobs? What impact does it already have on our lives? Well, with that, I'd like to introduce you to Sudha Jamthe, a technology futurist, CEO of IoT Disruptions, instructor at Stanford Continuing Studies, and author of 2 books on the Internet of Things. She's a thought leader in the IoT space, focusing mainly on guiding companies with innovation to adopt IoT and to build ecosystems for digital business transformations. She shares her research on IoT with her audience weekly. There's an IoT show on YouTube that you can subscribe to. She also serves on the advisory board of Blockchain University and Barcelona Technology School. You can reach her anytime on her site, iotdisruptions.com, and via Twitter at SUJamthe, and we'll display that later. But with that, I would like to say good morning here in California. Sudha, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
It's a beautiful day.
I want to mention Sudha is a close friend too, and I'm a big fan. So, Sudha, I know our audience is going to be very excited about this topic, so let's go right in, telling them a little bit about what is the Internet of Things. Is it just hype, or is it actually for real?
So I would say Internet of Things is part hype and part real. The reason I say that is because the word Internet of Things is used to cover something very, very broad. It is not something that is just one technology. It is a technology that has evolved over many, many years, so it covers the umbrella of things. In short, Internet of Things basically is about making everything around us. It could be table, it could be our clothing, it could be shoes, it could be our car, it could be factories, equipments, everything come to life by giving it internet connectivity.
Wow, that's almost too easy. Thank you. I've never had such a good explanation. And to make it even more practical, how is IoT applied in the real world? Why should I care about it?
That's a very good question. One is, as you start adding sensors and imagine things coming to life, right? Today, if you look at your home, everything is kind of manual. So I might forget to close my garage, I get out, and then I run back to check whether I've closed it. Or I have to feed my cat, and I have to make sure I, come back and be home and do this all on time. There are so many trivial things that we do and we should be doing that could be automated and done by machines. And the same thing, your car has to be taken for maintenance. When we go out flying, airlines, always there is some delay because there's some machine that breaks. So think about a world where your house takes care of itself. Your cat is fed, it is right at the right optimal temperature. You don't need to look at an equipment and say, is this turned on, is this turned off, what is the setting? It just takes care of itself. So that is one in the home setting. And then your car would take care of its own maintenance, and planes would never be late. That is the world of IoT when everything takes off. The hype part is because it covers too many things. Everything is called Internet of Things, so there is too much of promise, and we are not yet seeing it. But there is so much promise. That's what we're going to talk about, of what area to focus on that will impact your home, yourself, your health, your work, and where is the immediate business opportunity. What is short term and what is long term? We'll be talking about it.
Fascinating. Okay, let me digest that for a moment. So let's talk a bit about the value of the Internet of Things. For example, for me personally, I'm a marketing consultant, and our audience, I'm sure most of them are holding some kind of a job. Can I use Internet of Things in my job? And people feel like that even about social media nowadays. If I ignored IoT, would I find myself left behind in terms of my career and job opportunities?
So definitely. First, let me address the part about you as an individual. So IoT is the future because it's like when we've started bringing internet and web to computers, and there was a whole internet industry that evolved. And then we started getting internet to mobile, and then, there's a whole industry that evolved around it. Similarly, we are going to bring internet to everything around us. And so the jobs are going to change around it, and everything around us is going to have internet, means every industry is going to be impacted. So as an individual, you cannot ignore it. So that is one. The second thing is there's a huge opportunity right in front of you, because at every touch point, customers are talking to us with the devices. And so there's an opportunity for marketers to tap into it, and I'll talk about it in a little bit.
Okay. So IoT devices are touching customers in so many ways, via our clothing, our cars, our homes. Is there an opportunity for businesses to leverage this IoT to understand customers better and, I love this word as a marketer, improve the customer journey?
So let me give you an example. So I've been talking about IoT in abstraction, about thing. Now let's get real, right? So many of us wear these fit bands and fitness devices. These days, there's a lot of wearables which are essentially IoT devices on your clothing, on your body. So I wear a necklace which actually checks my health vitals. It checks whether my BP is going up and my temperature is fine. And it's a nice fancy necklace, and you won't even know that I'm wearing an IoT. Similarly, on my clothing, I have IoT. On my shoes, I have IoT. And it checks whether I'm walking right. Is my gait right, or am I hurting my hips? So this is all information that goes out that could go to your doctor, and it could keep my health on check. So similarly, there is IoT devices out in the city that is coming. That is why I said some is hype, some is coming now, and some is into the future. City has a lot of promise where we can put IoT sensors, and your traffic can be controlled by the internet. Your lights in the city can be controlled by the internet. So think about it. When there is all these devices all around us, they are all collecting information about us. So now when we switch to the business mode and think about it as a marketer, a marketer's dream is to know your customer and know your customer intent. So the IoT tracking me in my house, when I sleep, there's even sensors that check how well I sleep. So when I'm sleeping, when I'm eating, when I'm in my home, when I'm in my car, when I'm jogging, there's so much information being collected about me. So if you collect the aggregate of this information, it informs the intent of me as a customer. Though the intent is fragmented across different times, across these devices, it informs whether I am running because I'm feeling good about myself, I'm in charge of my life, Or did I not sleep well? And is that why I'm running off stress? If you put the data from the sleep sensor and my Fitband together, you're going to get that information. Now, I come from e-commerce, so I can think about it as a e-commerce site. You could actually, merchandise the right things to me based on my moods, based on my intent from what you learn from the data. So the data is the real power behind IoT for marketers.
And our viewers here will right now see a slide that you created about the Internet of Things application spectrum. Would you mind describing this a little bit more detail? There's quite a lot going on there.
Sure. I jumped ahead to this slide and just talked about it briefly, so this visual will definitely help us. So I've written this as concentric circles. This actually is a picture from Goldman Sachs, trying to capture what all is covered under IoT. So the innermost circle is wearables. That is basically IoT devices that is on us. The example I gave you about the clothing and the necklace and my shoes. There are also wearables that is coming up, which is in the pill form, it can be an implant. So it could be your pacemaker, and that now talks to the internet, and it tells the doctor whether it is running well or what is happening with your heart. There are pills which you can consume, and this is FDA approved, that goes inside your body and finds out how your body is doing. I mean, how is your biometrics that informs the doctor. There's a whole bunch of wearables that is on our body. So that is one, the innermost circle. And that's a new area that is up and coming. Every day there is a whole new device coming up. The next one is the connected car. So recently Tesla launched their Model 3, and within 24 hours they had booked sales worth $4 billion. And this is a consumer car. It's an electric car. It's going to be around $35,000. But they booked $4 billion worth of sales. Think of this from a marketer's perspective, that if you want to reach that many customers and create that much demand, that's a huge thing. The reason is because Tesla is a connected car. By connected car, what I mean is it is connected to the internet. And so the car actually has an internet connectivity, which means like a Wi-Fi or a wireless connectivity that is like your phone. It's like your phone. But the car manufacturers don't tell you that because they don't want to give you a data plan for your car. They just bear the cost of it. But what the car is doing is it is sending information about its own health, about all the different parts, how it is performing, and also about how you're driving. And it is selling all that information back to the mothership. And so the dealers can call the car back for service. Obviously, today it will notify you, and then you would drive the car there. In the future, it could be a self-driving car where it would take itself for service. So you don't need to worry about oil check and tire rotation and all those boring things. So that's the connected car. And the third thing is connected home. I gave examples a little bit here. So you have lights, you have your toaster, you have your washing machine. All of those are equipments, and they're all coming to life by Internet of Things. So they become intelligent devices because they get internet connectivity with sensors. So they will check for their own life to make sure that maintenance is needed or not. That is the easiest thing that's happening. But the promise and the future is that devices will talk to each other, understand your behavior. So if I did jogging and came back sweaty, my home should know because of my Fitband, and my home should know and adjust the temperature accordingly. And it will reduce the temperature to the right setting for me. And morning when I get up, based on when I get up, what is my usual habit, not even like when I wake up because my sleep sensor says, by just creating a pattern of when I wake up, it could actually tell the coffee maker to get the coffee ready. So that is the home, connected home, and that is a promise into the future, but we are not there quite in terms of connected home. There's a lot of innovation happening in that space. The next circle is the connected city. Again, I told you about how our lights and our traffic lights, our roads, everything in there would become connected. And so it would know on a crowded day how many people are going this way, where are the bicycles going. So the city can plan better, and we can obviously save a lot of energy and have better traffic controls in the city. That's the connected city. That is another one also evolving slowly. We are not seeing that yet today, but it is being piloted in many, many, many cities around the world. The last circle is the big one where Internet of Things, nobody is even stopping to talk about Internet of Things. It's just happening for real. So that is in industry, it's in transportation, in every possible industry. I spoke a lot about healthcare where, the wearable data is going to be connected to healthcare systems. And there is, it'll improve lives, save lives, provide predictive calls on critical health conditions, whole bunch of stuff. On an average, in any industry, it's full of machines. All those machines have sensors. And I've been talking to a lot of different people. I interview a lot of people to build case studies across different verticals. And there's not a single industry that I know that's not been touched by Internet of Things. And so there they are actually tracking the health of machines, the health of parts of different machines to make sure they optimize the uptime so there's straight ROI in industrial Internet of Things. So I want to pause there, Natasha. It's a lot to take on in one go. So do you have any question that can help our audience understand IoT better from here?
Yeah, this is fantastic. I love the graphic. I mean, there's a lot to take in, and obviously we're scratching the surface in 1 hour. But the outer circle where you are saying is where it is actually really happening. There's real application. Do you expect that even those sectors like transportation, oil and gas, healthcare, that they will also be talking to each other, or do you think it's going to be more isolated? And what is already happening there today?
That's a fantastic question. So today, each sector is isolated in its usual silo, but what they're doing within that sector, they are improving their efficiencies. For example, supermarkets, right? They have big shipping containers that bring in our grocery from far away, and they need to be maintained in the right optimal temperature for it to be healthy for us. And sometimes when they come in trucks, it's possible that there's a power outage, or certain fridge units might not be functional, and you won't know it in a normal setting. And then so we would have food decay, or we would have some kind of we had E. coli in Chipotle and all that recently. So in transportation, what they're doing is they are actually tracking the temperature, the humidity of every single container and throughout. So by the time it reaches its destination, they can say, there was a power outage on this unit, and this has not maintained the optimal temperature, so this food cannot be used. And so that is happening in all these different industries like that. It is happening in their own silos. But you raise a very good point. Once there is so much data about each of these, the next step of it is it would naturally connect with the next system. So if the shipping is coming and it comes to the supermarket by itself is adding IoT, so they want to make our experience fun and easy. And then the next step would be to integrate these two data from the shipping company and the supermarket, and whole new services could be built. We are not at all there. Today we are there where each of these industries are using IoT to reduce downtime of their own machinery, and they're making sure that they're looking at the health and safety of their consumers. Those are the two things that's happening in this belt.
So I know you're super flexible, and I am seeing that we actually got a few audience questions. So if you don't mind, I will pop those in before we move ahead to a little bit other area.
Sure, I'd love it.
Okay, so the first question is, as marketers, how or can we create content using IoT? Is that possible?
It's definitely possible, because IoT is they're essentially giving us data, right? It is giving, when I say data, it's actually saying where is the customer, right? So if I'm running, and let me give an example of I wear a wearable, so I'm trackable, and I walk a certain path every day and go to work, and I go through a set of shops. So if you represent one of those brands, say a shoe store, and when you see me walking outside that particular store, By my device, you know this is the time I come regularly, and I'm walking. You can see my pace at which I'm going. Then you could actually pop up a coupon and give me walking shoes. Knowing my behavior that I'm a walking customer and this is my regular routine, you can actually customize your marketing content towards me instead of generic whatever else is in the store.
Okay. Another question is, I'm going to ask this very quickly. Can people get a copy of your presentation? I assume that's a yes.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, yes. And then to another more deep question, and you already touched on this, but obviously this is a topic that our audience really cares about, so I know you can slice and dice this in different ways, and there's a lot of information. So this question is about how will IoT affect the relationship between customers, brands, and technology?
So today IoT is in early stages. So that question is loaded, right? It's about the relation between customer, brands, and technology. Like every new technology, it is driven by technologies in early stages. So today it is all about, hey, we are going to build these sensors, we are building these devices, and we are going to get a lot of data. So it's in that technical stage. Where it would start impacting customer relationship for brands is when the brands start appreciating the value of the data that is coming from their customers. So for example, there are about 300 Fitband like watches out there. And so we have a choice of lot of different fitness devices, and all of them are informing about how we are jogging, running, are we keeping our exercise habit, and stuff like that. Fossil Group, which owns all the different fashion brands, Armani and others, they ended up buying one of these fitness band companies called Misfit, and Misfit comes with its own slew of fashionable. I would wear a Misfit watch because it match. I have different colors to go with my clothing, and it looks fashionable. It doesn't look like, I'm just wearing some kind of device on me. And so Fossil Group bought them, I think, towards the end of last year for $260 million. And what they are doing is they are looking at how to integrate this experience into all the different brands. So they have promised that they're coming with thousands of products this year, which is going to embed this wearables into its own products, into its brand. So it would be fashionable, it could be your handbag, it could be shoes, and it would have IoT baked in. And so it could be something useful, like you would know when the shoes is becoming old and you need to get a new shoes, or it could be the health data that I was talking about. There are so many things that can be done with the data. But what the marketers should think about is, now I'm getting data about my customer, and what information is it telling me about the customer? And all this data is willingly shared by the customer. And so it's a little like social media, but there is so much more power in this data. In social media, we actually find out the customer is talking about that particular brand and is on various different social channels. And so if the brand people listen on social media, they would know what is the brand sentiment, and they can offer customer service for that particular brand. But with Internet of Things, the customer is sharing their intent. So the customer is saying, oh, I have run around in the shoes for so long, and my shoes are actually saying that it's worn out. So there's an opportunity to to sell them, upsell them more shoes. Or it's possible that I have I'm going back to shoes. I love shoes, by the way. I might have 10 different shoes, and all of them might have sensors. The marketer is going to see, the brand is going to see that my usage pattern. It can actually see which shoes am I using more or less. That's actually informing about what I like, what I wear when, which one do I use more. And so it actually tells them about my preference. So there's a relationship between the brand and the customer changes, because now I'm willingly telling my brand, hey, I bought these shoes, but I'm not using this as much, but I love these other shoes. so they can actually build and sell products that meets my needs and personalize the experience for me.
So let me just rephrase this in my own words to make sure I got this right. Because in marketing right now, if you read about the big area, the holy grail, it seems to be predictive marketing, right? Where you take data from the past and you assume what people will want in the future. But what this would give us is to know actually the intention of somebody and what they really want. So it's much more reliable.
That is true. So you do predictive, and then you actually come up with an estimate, and now you validate that, hey, this is we said with 85% confidence the customer wanted this particular product and not this other product, and now the customer is giving you data which either refutes it. It's like a real-life A/B testing as I'm walking around.
So on the one hand, it sounds to me like, and millennials will probably love this because studies also show that they like retargeting. I'm obviously in a little bit older age group. It seems like there's an upside, obviously, for the consumer to get what they really want. But, I had to ask this. What about the creepiness factor, Big Brother, the human being where everything is known about? How do you feel about that?
I was expecting this question to come from you because while I'm saying all this, I can hear a little skepticism. I'm like, this sounds to be too good to be true. So the thing with data and marketers and brands is there is always that creepiness factor, right? So on one end, the whole IoT is in early stages in certain parts of the circle, and it is in more advanced in, like in internet, like the industrial internet in some places. So where it is getting to be more advanced, security is being baked in. Where it is in early stages, we don't have enough security. So that absolutely needs to be taken care of before this data can be used and trust can be formed with the customers. Having said that, the privacy is a totally different element. So now when I'm willing to share when I'm jogging and when I'm walking, and I want Northstamp to merchandise the right shoes for me, I'm actually got trust with that brand. And so marketers have to earn that trust. So there's vast volume of data, but consumers are not just going to give it up willingly. The brands have to earn their trust. And so I believe Northstamp will give me the right shoes and its value for me, and I trust they are not going to misuse my information in any other form. Then I'm going to open up and give that information. The minute I find that data has been used differently than I thought they were going to use it, I would close off and I would stop giving that information. So this is trickling feeds of data in so many different sources. It's from wearables, it's from the city, it's from so many, from my home, from so many different devices. So it is not just one source. Think of it as there are like hundreds of taps of data from the same consumer, and marketers are going to get it, and brands are going to use that and produce new products or personalize the experience like we were talking about. But I would shut off each tap if I didn't have the trust and I felt that was misused. So, but if somebody wants to go ahead and use all that and draw insights about a person, find out when I'm home, when I'm not home, because my devices are telling me that is always there. That creepiness factor is there. So that is why I would be a bit more cautious about having the Internet of Things in my home. The connected home is evolving little more slowly because of that, because I don't want, for example, Nest is a thermostat that I've had since the very first version, and it's a beautiful device. It's a pleasure to just have the device in your home because it's a toy, but it's a thermostat, and so I can turn it and I can set the temperature, or I have an app which has the exact same UI. I can turn it there with the same experience, and it sets the temperature. But the Nest was sold to us saying it's a learning thermostat. So I don't need to keep twiddling with when I want it. I can set it up saying this is the band, I like it when I'm in or out, and then my husband comes and he tweaks around to his setting, and and it goes on, right? The whole different people in the house wants different setting, and finally we have different settings we use at different time. Now the thermostat understands all that as a device, as a thing, and it learns and says, okay, now I need to set it at this temperature. When they go to bed, I do this. When they leave the home, then at this temperature, and it saves energy for me. The Nest actually came with, I want you to customize your experience and may add an app and tell us each person when you're in or out of the house. That crosses the line a little bit, and now it is telling, it's going to want to know when I'm in the house, when my husband is in the house, when each person is in the house, and when finally everybody has left the house. From a thermostat use case, it makes sense. But for me, I'm not comfortable actually saying I'm not in the house at this time, and the whole house, everybody is out. To give her patterns of when we come in and out of the house for the whole house, for the sake of energy saving, is kind of a little too much. But Nest has a huge following, and there must be a lot of customers who agree and do that. So it also gets personal on how much privacy we are ready to give up for the benefit of the value we are getting. And the brands have to earn the trust. We are not there with, at least on unconnected home products. There's a very quick line brands can cross and into the creepiness factor.
I hear what you're saying, and I get the trust thing. But you even see this now, right, with just the internet and social media, how a lot of segments of the population, especially older people, are vulnerable to fraud, and they maybe trust too much. So there's a certain amount of ignorance, and I wonder, what's the responsibility to keep people safe who just don't have the knowledge. Not everybody works in Silicon Valley. So I guess what I'm trying to say is this trust thing sounds good, but we all know that there's a lot of malicious actors out there who will try to abuse that trust. And, that gets me to the whole area of cybersecurity. We've all seen that hackers now, especially hacktivists, try to hack into utilities, or pretty much none of us is safe in any way on the internet from people trying to attack us. And a lot of people even have passwords that are admin or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or passwords. So that's the reality of where we're at. Don't you think? I mean, for me, the concern is that we're exposing a large part of the population, maybe people are less educated, to all these dangers that, they trust, but they just don't really understand the impact it can have on their lives.
That is true. So as we go onto the internet, even without the Internet of Things, the more and more we start using internet in our life, there is the value that we get from all that, but also the increased risk that there are hackers and people could track more information about you than you think you're sharing. That is always there. And I don't believe seniors are the only ones who are vulnerable. In fact, there are a lot of IoT devices to help seniors and to help them if they need to get help, if they fall off in a house and stuff like that. There are devices that are being made just for them. In fact, in healthcare, there are products and services that is evolving for extended care at your home once you return back from the hospital to measure health vitals. So there is all this goodness on one side, but the truth is, yes, it has to be balanced with offering for people who are producing and making these IoT products and businesses. They have to have that ethical, moral compass of making sure that it is absolutely safe, and they communicate to the users what data they are collecting and what they are going to do with that data. And there will always be hackers. So that is why in what touches the consumers is going to evolve much more slowly. I want to share one thing. I just spoke with somebody from China yesterday. So for my IoT show, I talked to a whole bunch of global guests to just make sure that, I'm giving you perspective from around the world. And I was shocked when I heard this professor from Taiwan tell me that in China, they put RFID, that's a sensor band, on kids. Many years back they did that, it seems. As the kids, and then they had these readers outside each classroom, and he said, it was not about privacy or security. Parents wanted to make sure kids were safe and they reached school. And so with the band would actually tell that the kid came into the class. And instead of taking attendance, the teacher would know they are there. So if a kid didn't show up, then they will immediately notify the parents and say, where's your child? She's not in school. So this cannot happen here in US. I was telling him that, and he was saying there are different cultural sensitivities in different areas, and this works for China. Whereas in Europe, you cannot share a piece of data without explicitly saying, in Germany, for example, I looked at a connected, it was a car brochure. Audi has come with a car brochure, and the brochure paper packet has become an IoT. So they put sensors in there. So what it means is you can actually open the car brochure, and it tells about the different features of the Audi, and you place your cell phone on a box that they've given in the brochure. And then you tap into different sections of the brochure as you're reading it, and the phone comes to life in an app inside, and it actually shows you a video and more content about that particular feature. And I was looking at this. This was done by agency in Germany. And I looked at it and said, wow, so now can you actually tag this and say, people of this demographics, women like this particular feature, men like this features, or, people of this region in this dealership like this feature? And they said, absolutely not. In Germany, we cannot collect any data from consumers without telling them what we are going to do with that data. And people will not give permission to segment them and understand their demographics like that holistically, and so that's not an option. So in some countries there are compliance and privacy laws from the government. In some countries like China, there is, people are open and not worrying so much about privacy. And in US, we care about privacy. At the same time, with social media, we are giving up so much of our privacy by our privacy settings willingly. But I think the onus is on the brand and the marketer. I go back to the trust. If you did not tell the senior or anybody else that you are going to do something to learn about their behavior using the data, and they go about the jolly way, they give all their data, and one day they find out that you're misusing the data, that's the end of the trust. And that is the end of the business. And so it's a huge price to pay, and so I think brands should be cognizant of balancing the risk versus the trust factor in collecting the data and using this data.
So I'm sure people are wondering, is there any way to opt out of the Internet of Things? Because you and I have talked about how, for example, people see young kids on their phones and they think, oh, the world is coming to an end. And I think I've shared with you personally, I've made the decision to not be one of those old people one day who thinks, oh, the world is ending because of new technology, because I think that's always happened and it's happening. So I am embracing it, and I think it is what it is, and we all have choices and make the best out of it, right? That doesn't mean you just stand there and don't do anything, but I think if you're consumed by your fear, nobody gains anything. So the question is, though, if somebody said, oh, this is terrible, I don't want to be a part of it, is there actually a way for somebody to opt out of the Internet of Things? Because I know there is pretty much no way to opt out of social media, right? Unless you don't even use a mobile phone, because Facebook now, you can have your security settings airtight, but if one of your friends doesn't and they share it on, boom, your information is out there. So back to, can you opt out of IoT?
I don't think so. I don't think we have a way out. It's exactly like social media that. So in industrial setting, you go in a plane, the plane is full of sensors. It's helping to keep the plane running, and it's not invading your privacy per se, so you're not thinking about it. There are dams and bridges that is all being checked for, when they will fall and when they will, predict when they would need maintenance by sensors. Again, we think it's kind of far off, it's not invading our privacy. The connected city, once it takes off, it is going to be all around us. There is no escape from it. In fact, I don't know where our listeners are all coming from. San Jose is running a pilot with lights that turn on and off. based on the cars passing by. And you don't even know it. They don't need to tell you about it, but they must be counting how many cars are going at what time of the day, when is it crowded, and when do we need to manage energy for that. So once the connected city comes, it's going to have sensors all around us. Our cars are beginning to have sensors already, and there's no escape from that, because the revolution of the connected car has begun, and every other than Tesla, right? Every other manufacturer of cars are all building out innovation centers and trying to figure out how can they give this autopilot that the car can help you. So if you doze off, if you're driving, if you have highway fatigue and you're driving for a long time, the car can sense it, and it can actually take over or at least advise you not to drive. On the wearables and connected homes is the place where there are lots and lots of devices. So if you are one of those people, overly cautious and want to protect your privacy, like the person who gets out of Facebook, you could avoid buying these devices, but it is not going to be for too long, because they are going to come. They are going to be there everywhere. So it would come to a time where your washing machine comes with the sensor and you won't have a choice of not buying a washing machine, right? I mean, you can't walk away from using devices that kind. So it's not like a new device that you're buying that it's cool and you're excited, or you're scared and you don't buy it, but it's going to be all around you. So the better way would be to become first, as consumers, to become informed about what kind of data is it collecting, where do I have control, what do I do about it, and get in the game and help define these devices to the right privacy setting. That's how Facebook did not come with this kind of privacy setting when it got started. In fact, I remember when we got started with Facebook and they launched their platform in 2007, an app could send invites to the entire network, right, to all the friends. Then it became too spammy, and then they cut it down and said, an app can spend only to so many number of friends. And now you optimize it to who you're sending it. And it evolved, and then ended up, after a few years later, they ended up with several choices of privacy settings for users. And they're still evolving that. Similar to that, the more we get engaged as consumers and speak up and push back on where it crosses the line for us, the products would evolve to that. That is one. Cities would come in and set the right privacy settings too. That is one. But I think this particular audience has the power to control it more than anybody else, because marketers are the ones who are going to use this data and do anything with it, right? Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Marketers are the ones who are going to use this data and from the insights understand the customer intent and say, now I can offer this other product. I can produce this content and I can show them this content. And I can do this, or I can draw the line and not do this because now it's crossing the line. And so there's an ethical line. As a business person, we should draw the line on what we would do or where we would inform the consumer where we are using the data. And as consumers, we can use this and give feedback and push back where it is not comfortable for us to help shape this. But I don't believe, even when you're using a cell phone today, it is full of sensors. And it's adding more and more IoT sensors. So I don't think you have a choice to stay out of the game. The benefits obviously far outweigh the risk. And like anything new, when you don't know what it is, to some extent it looks scary. But think about it. It's an opportunity. You get to come in this early stage and shape it and make it work for you. So take control of that.
And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I come from the perspective that the whole cybersecurity situation is so dire that you could lose everything you have, even your identity, and potentially if somebody hacked into your car, your life, if hackers get through to you. And where I see the challenge is, we all have internet access, and we all hopefully have firewalls and systems to try to shield ourselves from the outside, but the Internet of Things is doing the opposite, right? I was just reading the other day about Amazon released another one of those, I don't know what they're called, but it was last year, I think, when a razor blade company launched this, or you hang this in your bathroom, and when you're out of razor blades, you press the button, and then Amazon automatically orders it.
Yeah,
I mean, for me, this is the biggest gimmick of all times. I don't know why anybody would want to do this, but that for me really exposes you in a completely unnecessary way. But I mean, all Internet of Things kind of opens up this communication to the outside. So that's where I would see the challenge. And I guess if I heard you right, it's a little bit about you decide what you bring into your house, and if you want to be religious about it, there probably will be a movement of, yes, here you can buy the product without sensors, kind of like the people who don't want the smart meters, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to push this along a little bit. Sorry, Sudha, because we have a bunch of questions, but I want to ask this last question that's really important to me about, as we're already talking about security and creepiness, right? We all know how Steve Hawkins was talking about the danger of artificial intelligence, and a few other people share this opinion that, that's taking over our world as we know it in a bad way. But do you think the Internet of Things is taking us towards that artificial intelligence, and how do you view that prospect?
So I'm a very big fan of AI. And artificial intelligence covers so many things. So if you're asking me, are robots come and do our jobs and take over our jobs? Are there going to be robots everywhere and they're going to, it's going to be like a iRobot or that kind of world? I don't think so. But there is a lot of research that is going on. In Bay Area, there have been about close to 900 startups. It's Bay Area, Canada, and UK. There have been close to 900 startups that are funded in the artificial intelligence space. And so I don't think that is going to go away. And yes, the Internet of Things is coming up with lots and lots of data. I mean, for us to create any kind of AI system, we need a lot of data. But let me bring it home to how I'm using it. I use an algorithm called Amy. It's a cute name, isn't it? Who is my personal assistant. So I get I have to schedule a lot of calls and meetings through the day, and I have to balance my calendar. And sometimes it becomes a nightmare because some are meetings that I have to drive up, and then some are calls, and I have to kind of manage my calendar. And I ended up trying out Amy from x.ai, and she does a fabulous job. So when anybody asks me for a meeting, all they have to do is put Amy in CC, and Amy would check what I have told her of what is accepted bands of time, when I want to travel, how far I want to go, what bands of time I want between my meetings and whatnot, my preference. And she replies to them and say, tell me your preferred time band. She'll check against my calendar, and she schedules it. I don't even know the conversation she has behind the scenes. And she ends up coming back and say, do you want to meet this person in this location? They're asking for this. Is this okay with you? Or if somebody is asking for repeat meetings, she'll come back and say, my job is to protect your calendar. Do you want to meet with this person again? I mean, when I have these conversations on email with Amy, I forget that Amy is an algorithm. She is an AI. And many of my business contacts who schedule meetings with me actually don't even realize Amy is an algorithm for a while. And at some point, she makes some kind of nerdy statement that makes them realize that she is it, And so they come back. And so I tell them, our moms worked very hard to teach us to say please and thank you when we were 5. You don't want to lose that by calling Amy an it. And so just keep talking to her as long as she does the job she's supposed to do. So the short version of it is, I find that there is going to be algorithms, there is going to be artificial intelligence, especially with volumes and volumes of Internet of Things data. But there's also good things happening. All the data, that is the stuff that I was telling from wearables that can go to the doctor, is humongous volume of data. So what they're doing is they're actually running machine learning algorithms on data to find out, for disease patterns. And the same predictive analytics that you are talking about, they're actually trying to predict, is this person prone to a kidney disease or a heart disease? Then maybe we should proactively give them a call, bring them in, check them out. So it is in health as a whole. Healthcare is becoming a whole new field called digital health, where absolutely this volume of data is creating artificial intelligence opportunities and even to prolong life and save life. Similarly, there is a lot more in other industries too. So I think, I'm an optimist on this. And like everything else, we would use it, we would give feedback, we would push back. If it helps us, we have power as consumers, as customers. If it helps us and it meets our need, we are going to pay for it. If enough people don't like it and they find it's invading their privacy and it's creepy and it's not as enough value for it, the trade-off, they're going to stop using it, and the product is not going to scale. So we have complete power in our hands, but AI is coming and scaling with Internet of Things.
Okay, we will officially move over into our Q&A session. There's a bunch of questions. We have 10 minutes, so we have to keep it short. But I wanted to quickly read a comment here on Twitter from Jacqueline Kramer, who's kindly been very active. And she said, I like this conversation, and she's referring to the one we had about if you can choose to have your own devices in your house or not for security. She said, but eventually they will be too integrated to avoid. So she agrees with you here, Sudha. Now, on to the other questions. So question number 1, is Internet of Things for all sizes of companies?
Yes. I give the shortest answer. Do you want more?
I think the question would probably be, I'm assuming here, that if a company is really small, can they afford it, or is this too involved, right?
No, it's not. It's just, you're getting a product, and the product is going to come with sensors, and it's going to help save energy for you. It's going to do some kind of cost saving for you. So I think it's very important for small businesses and big businesses alike. And in fact, if you are a new business, the way to look up at it is, how do I disrupt this industry? How do I create an advantage over my big competition by using Internet of Things? And I have better data about my customers, and why wouldn't I not use that?
Right. Okay. So here's some pretty deep questions, and we have 7 minutes left. So again, we keep it short, but I know, Sudha, because Bright Talk is such a great platform, that you will be able to also answer questions in more depth afterwards, so you can always have a look at that if you have the time. Okay, this is a very interesting question. Most applications we hear about are very consumer-oriented. Could you explain how specialized professionals, for example, neurosurgeons or endocrinologists, would get relevant information about new topics within their functional area?
So like I said, with machine learning, there is a lot of healthcare data that people are applying machine learning to look for pathogens, to look for, to predict a bunch of things for this thing in healthcare. But also there are medical devices that are all becoming, for neurosurgeons, I would say there is actually a device that takes the nerve pulses from your head and allows the human to do something. So it's for people with wheelchairs, wear this cap, which is an IoT cap, and they just think they want to move, and they can move. It can't get any better than that. So it is applicable to every possible industry. I'm happy to do follow-ups on very specific industry, because I've case studies on pretty much every one of them I can think of.
Fantastic, because I think there's some very intelligent questions here that would require deeper answers. But the next one here, which also I think is interesting, and I can't wait to hear your answer, what about IoT and automation, from product design to product use? Can you provide a real-world example and talk about the value chain?
Sure. When you do product design, in fact, I'm involved in designing IoT products for education as an advisor for a startup. It's an amazing thing, because typical product design and product features, when you prioritize them, it's a long cycle. So you build some, especially for a piece of hardware and equipment, you build something, you put it out there, you get feedback, then you come back, and then you have to do the next rev, which is going to take longer time. So GE is actually applying this. It is called IoT thinking, where they actually put sensors in the devices and ship it out, right? It could be turbines, it could be locomotive parts, or it could be, equipments in your home. And they send it out to the world, to the customers, and they have sensors which are actually looking at how the equipment is performing. And before it breaks, they look at different situations, combination of conditions, this much of usage in this frequency, in this kind of weather condition. They are getting all that information sent back. So when people are building the product, they get real-time information about the performance of these parts and equipments, and they're adjusting to that to do the new product design. The same thing for software products and healthcare products. There's a whole bunch of machine learning to prioritize which features are going to be applicable to different segments. So that's happening. It's called IoT thinking.
Okay, we have 4 minutes. So here's another great question. How do customers really offer permission to view their information globally, by device? How can you prevent tracking by people with bad intent?
So unfortunately, you cannot prevent tracking by people with bad intent. But as you buy each device, today the market is very fragmented with many thousands of players. So each device comes with an app and a setting of what you're allowed to collect, what you're allowed to share. It's all in the setting, and you explicitly give permission for every one of them today. So each IoT device, you get it, set it up. At that point, just be cognizant of what you're signing up for. Don't blindly sign up and say, I agree to all the terms of privacy terms. Then you will be in much better control.
Okay. There's a question about connected cars, which I believe we have answered, but Sudha, you can take a look at that later. And then also there's another person who would like your slides, and I want to tell everybody there will be an on-demand version of this event available very shortly, and there's already some content uploaded to this presentation, and we'll also add the slides to that. So to the last question to close out with here today, interesting study result here from Altimeter, somebody posted. It says 87% of consumers are not familiar with the term IoT. What do you think about that, Sudha?
That is true. That is true. I was talking to somebody from Medtronic who makes pacemakers, and they were actually applying IoT and making the device connected and talking to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, but they did not know they were building an IoT. So somehow the word IoT has been used for many years and refers to a bucket of things, and it doesn't matter whether it is called IoT or not, but it's going to evolve into the different circles that I told about. So wearables is a subsegment of IoT. If you don't call it IoT, as long as it's a wearable, it does what it's supposed to do, it's still an IoT. So it doesn't matter whether it's called IoT or not. Don't worry about that. But think about, is it really connected to the internet? It's collecting your data. Is it providing data about customers? What can you do with the data to create value for your customers?
Excellent, excellent. So with this, of course, we could talk longer and longer here, Sudha. I want to thank our audience for being so fabulously engaged here online and on Twitter. And we'd love to continue this conversation. You see Sudha's Twitter handle here on the last slide, and the URL iotdisruptions.com for her podcast, news, and case studies. So please be in touch. We love networking. And I'd like to also quickly tell you a little bit about her books. She's written multiple. The latest one is IoT Disruptions 2020, which will also touch on the connected world and deep learning in 2020, as well as artificial intelligence. There's a bunch of other books, and they're all published through Stanford Education, available online. And if you have questions about the books, you can obviously check them out online and also communicate with Sudha about them. She uses those for her lectures as well. Yes, so thank you so much. I learned a lot myself, Sudha, and I hope things will go fantastic for you and we'll all stay cyber safe, and the benefits of IoT will be fantastic.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun. I look forward to follow-ups, and I promise to answer every one of them that comes my way.
Awesome. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Natasha.